You landed on this video because you're here for yourself and you know that you have the capacity to move towards something that's better for you. You know that you are capable of creating change in your life. And because of that, I think you should give yourself some props. You might be feeling low right now, but you have proven that even when you feel low, you are still willing to get back up. What's up, everyone? In today's video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to end the negative cycle that you are in. I want to share some of the things that I feel like are helpful reminders that help me to move out of the negative space that I was in. And these are the things that have helped me to stay in a positive mindset and not let myself go back to the space that I was in, because literally I was feeling down in the dumps for over a year. And what I mean is I was unmotivated, uninspired to pursue any of my creative passions. I honestly had a hard time taking care of myself. Learning some of the things that I'm going to share with you guys today truly saved my life and still are the things that I'm coming back to make sure that I stay in a positive mindset, because depression can get us and sadness can get us, and because life is a cycle, and just because you move out of one season where you're feeling low and stuck and you're in your positive season, that does not mean that you're not going to go back to the period of where you were feeling low. Life moves in a series of highs and lows, and I think navigating life is about learning how to balance the ebbs and the flows and learn how to move with the tide. If you have been feeling like you're in a rut or just a lower season of your life, I think it is important to first create a safe container for yourself to feel your emotions. I know that when I was first trying to move through this low period in my life, it was really hard for me to look at the situation the way that it was, because I didn't want to admit to myself that I was in the lowest point of my life. You don't have to be at the lowest point in your life to be in this negative cycle, but for me, that was the case. I was not working towards anything career-wise. I was not there for myself. I wasn't caring for myself, doing the daily basics. I'm not talking about the high maintenance things. I mean, like making sure that I'm getting up to shower on a daily basis, making sure that I switch my outfit. Like I was in the same sweatpants for a while. Like I was in a full depression mode. In order for me to put a name to what I was going to and really just start to look at my situation and look at how I could change things, I had to create a good environment for myself in order to do those things. I had to kind of switch up the environment that I was in. In order for me to recognize what I was going through, I had to allow space within myself so that I could be open to recognizing that I was at the lowest point in my life. I feel like we are so hard on ourselves when we are at our lowest. And so I think the first thing that you have to do is create space for yourself to be honest. We have to become really conscious of that inner voice, that inner dialogue that is constantly judging, perceiving the world and criticizing it. And that looks different for everybody. Maybe you need to meditate, or maybe you need to journal, or whatever it is. For me, silencing that inner voice looks like becoming really aware of it and recognizing that my thoughts are just thoughts, that my thoughts do not define me. When we are at these low periods in our lives, it's so easy to get down on ourselves and to be like, oh my God, like I'm not doing anything. I'm not working towards my goals. I'm so lazy. I'm a bad person. I'm whatever you're telling yourself. Ultimately, I feel like you have to become aware of that, because we can't move forward if we're judging ourselves. We can't move forward if we're criticizing ourselves. In order for us to get started on healing, we have to feel like our environment is safe. By environment, I'm talking about our inner environment, our inner world. Our inner world has to feel like a safe space for us in order for us to feel like we can open up. You're not going to want to talk to someone who talks shit about you every day and that you can't trust, and that feels like they're just going to take your secrets and go tell the whole world. You won't want to talk to them about what you're going through. So why should you be that person for yourself? No, we have to change the narrative around that. We have to silence our inner critic and get really quiet within so that our suppressed emotions that led us to being in this negative cycle can arise, and we can start to unpack them, and we can start to move through the motions so that we can work toward a better life for ourselves. As people, we don't like to be uncomfortable. So when you're dealing with an uncomfortable situation or an uncomfortable emotion, the natural response is either to try to fight it or to try to run away. When it comes to emotions, it's most likely that you're trying to run away from it. And that's because our brains are hardwired to protect us from pain. And I think there's power in realizing that our emotions are neither good or bad. Our emotions are just feelings that come up and pass. And when we're in these negative cycles, when we're in these ruts, it's because we haven't allowed our emotions to pass. We are attaching to them and we are holding on to them, and we get caught up. Our mind likes to create scenarios and situations, and that stops us from showing up as the versions of ourselves that we want to be in this world. And when you realize that what you feel is not attached to you, it's not attached to your identity, you can allow it to pass and start to move towards breaking the cycle that you're in. I think the next thing that's really important is learning how to recognize what triggered you in the first place. When I was going through my rut, I realized that for me, it started because I felt really directionless in life. I felt like I didn't have a purpose and I wasn't working towards anything. And it started to spiral from those thoughts. But let's take a different approach. Maybe this season that you're in is exactly where you're meant to be. Maybe this season is leading you to the next. A season of stuckness might be exactly what you need to get through. When I was in this negative cycle, the only way out is through. There's no other way to get out of the feelings that you're having than to allow them to pass, than to settle in it, than to get through it. You're not gonna hop over it. There's no easy one-trick solution for you to move through the space that you've been in. You have to journey through it. The approach we try to take when we are in a negative situation is we just try to do the opposite thing. If you haven't been going to the gym, you just try to start going to the gym. We can't just go from being a couch potato and not doing much to becoming hyper productive. There will be a crash because you haven't moved through what held you from accomplishing the goals in the first place. Maybe the way to move through a negative cycle is to embrace it. Maybe this season of your life is realigning you to get you closer to what you're actually meant to be doing. Create that safe container where you can work with your shadow, where you can work with these negative emotions without casting judgment on them. Because like I said, for me, I was feeling really uninspired. I was feeling directionless. That has to do with me attaching my self-worth with my productivity. Let's change our perspective about it and realize, like I said, this season is bringing you closer to where you're meant to be. Maybe it is not so negative. Maybe it is exactly where you need to be to get to the next step. And maybe you were hyperfixating on the fact that you're not producing enough fruit, that you're not being as productive as you would like to be, that you are not creating in terms of what society expects you to create. So ask yourself, why? Why do you feel like you're in a negative cycle? What are the ways in which you've been self-sabotaging? Why do you feel like you are in a rut? It's usually something very small, and then our minds create situations that we spiral into. I think that if you can recognize that you don't have to attach to your thoughts, you can move through those situations without placing your self-worth on them. I challenge you that when you are doing this, to continue to ask yourself why, and let's treat it a little bit playfully. Let's treat it like you were a child exploring curiosity, and ask yourself why and why and why, and allow yourself to get deeper. Healing is getting to know yourself while practicing unconditional forgiveness. Much like love, forgiveness is an action. You can't just say that you forgive somebody or you forgive yourself and that just be one and done. Forgiveness is something that you have to come back to over and over again, because we're human. As we are moving through life, we are constantly making mistakes. Our ego demands that we do more, that we take more action. It's like our ego can never be satisfied, and there's always something else that we can be doing. There's no way that we can ever satisfy our desire to be more, to have more. And so we have to consciously let it all go and forgive ourselves for the space that we've been in. We have been feeling like we're in this negative cycle because we are protecting ourselves from feeling something uncomfortable. While you're doing the work to move through this space that you've been in, you have to give yourself unconditional forgiveness. We cannot flow until we give ourselves grace. Life is a series of highs and lows. There are going to be times where we are moving in abundance, and there are going to be times where we're moving in lack. We have to choose not to base our identities off of any one point and accept life as it is for what it is. So you will move through this negative cycle that you've been in by coming to terms with where you're at and forgiving yourself for that, not holding yourself to an impossible standard. And it all comes back to trusting the timing of your life, because what's meant for you will come to you. Every season that you move through brings you closer to love and to the purpose that you create for yourself here on this earth. It is really easy to look at other people in your life and to see their light, to see all the amazing things that they're doing, the amazing qualities that they have, but not to see that in ourselves. And even though you might have been feeling negative and you might have been feeling low, that does not overshadow all the amazing growth that you have been through. That even in this season of your life where things don't feel quite right, you are moving through it with so much ease and with so much grace, and you are growing at the same time. And we don't see that, but the people in our lives do. That's why I think it is important to just reach out to people and let them know where your headspace has been at, because you might not see how much growth you've made. Other people can see those amazing qualities in you. Sometimes we just lack the sight to identify our own light. Realize that you just have to trust the timing of your life, that things are unfolding exactly as they are meant to. You are always on a divine path and you're being guided whether you know it or not. And just trust that everything in your life is happening for a reason and it's unfolding exactly as it is meant to. And continue to give yourself acceptance and grace, because you are moving through this season of your life with ease and with light, whether you know it or not. You are committed to yourself. You are committed to moving forward. And that's all that you can ever expect from yourself. And success comes when you are unwilling to give up on yourself, and you are doing that for yourself. So just trust where you are at. I think the only way to get out of a rut is to practice unwavering self-love. Being accepting of yourself, cutting off negative self-talk, and forgiving yourself are all components of self-love. But I just mean on the day-to-day things as well. Are you moving your body? Are you making sure that you're eating nutritious foods? Are you taking care of yourself physically? Are you doing something for your spiritual and emotional and mental health? Usually when I am able to stick to these basic foundational things of taking care of myself, I feel a lot more positive. I feel a lot more optimistic about my life. And when you pour into your self-love, you have energy to pour into other areas of your life. You don't need to ask so much from yourself. You need to start with small steps. Take small steps to practice self-love and self-care. If your long-term goal is to go to the gym 5 times a week, maybe you just need to start with making sure that you move your body every day in some way or fashion. Maybe it's doing yoga. Maybe it's going on a light walk. Maybe it's Pilates. Maybe it is strength training 3 times a week. Just start with taking baby steps, because baby steps lead to massive change. So don't try to force goals. Just work on parenting yourself, nurturing yourself, doing the little things that are going to eventually give you the energy to tackle bigger goals and projects. And when you've been feeling very low, the small wins are exactly what you need, that are going to give you some sense of accomplishment, that build momentum for you to start to do the things that you've been wanting to do or that you've been putting off. When I was in this period of my life, it felt really hard for me to see my own light, to see the things that I loved about myself, to see the things that I was doing well at. And so one thing that I did was write a list of everything that I loved about myself, and I revisited it often until I felt self-worth, until I felt self-love. Those are some of the things that I think are really important reminders. Creating a safe environment for yourself to feel your emotions, identifying what led you to feel like this in the first place, practicing acceptance and forgiveness, trusting the timing of your life, and giving yourself unwavering self-love are the foundational things that you need to do in order to move through this season of your life. It will naturally come to an end when it's meant to end. Maybe this is the moment where it does end for you. Either way, realize that this time in your life, it was not time that was wasted. It's time where you learned so much about yourself. It's a time where you practiced resilience and you were able to get back up no matter how many times you got knocked down. You still got up. You still committed to yourself to move forward and to move through. So the healing comes when you allow yourself to accept the space that you've been in, forgive yourself, and give yourself self-love. Take care of yourself, whatever that looks like for you. I will leave a list of some practical things that you can do if you are wanting to make some changes in your life right now. now and you need help figuring out what to implement, I will also leave some books and podcasts that I think are really helpful and help me get out of the rut that I was in. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Leave a comment down below with something that you took from it, or maybe if you feel called to it, share a little bit about the season of life that you've been in. I'd love to hear about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you next week.